brought to you by our friends of the British Council. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 on West 35th Street in New York City, built into the Renaissance Hotel. We have on with us from the Eggchasers podcast, the inimitable JB, who is gracious enough to call in from across the pond. JB, how are you, brother?
Mate, I am very, very well. And as soon as I get the call from you, Matt, everything else from my schedule gets cleared immediately. I get on the laptop, I call in.
Well, that's good. That's the way it should be, and that's the way we're going to maintain our relationship going forward. Now, but in all seriousness, some big doings over there. I'm looking at your ceiling, by the way. It's a nice ceiling. It's a little plain.
It is.
You got the ceiling angle going. You know, it's
I can change. There you go.
All right, so I'm seeing what was that? A Dragons? What do you got there? What are you wearing?
Right now, I'm wearing my old hoodie from one of the oldest clubs in the UK, Broughton Park Football Club. Now, you'll notice it's called Football Club, not Rugby Football Club, because all the earliest clubs were, of course, football clubs first. So there you are, Broughton Park FC.
All right. Well, we had that same thing here. The New York Rugby Club, which I am part of, was initially, up until like 5-7 years ago, the New York Rugby Football Club, and now So it was the NYRFC, now it's the NYRC. I know that's enthralling for everybody listening, so let's skip to the next topic. We got big doings over there with Worcester Warriors going to be purchased by the Scotland Rugby Union. Well, what the haggis is going on with that?
Yeah, well, it's not entirely clear, is it? I mean, they have got ownership issues. They don't make much money. In fact, they lose a lot. They're currently losing somewhere between the region of £3 to £4 million per year, and they're up for sale. So, the idea of Scotland Rugby buying Worcester is fairly crazy, and also, for the Scottish Rugby Union with the limited resources, sounds like a very expensive exercise in order to get a foothold into the Premiership. But this story isn't going away. It keeps on coming back. One of my colleagues actually approached the SRU, and they gave no comments. Instead of killing the story, they stoked the fire some more. So yeah, very peculiar goings on at Worcester.
So, if I'm not mistaken, they had one of the owners of a top 14 team from the French league. I think his name was Mohamed Altred. Is that his name? And he was going to.
Well, I have not.
Oh no, he was going to take over Gloucester, right? But they called it
That's correct, yeah.
The guy from Montpellier, right? And they were calling it a conflict of interest. But how is this not a conflict of interest in the European competition?
Oh well, absolutely. I mean, I guess the big difference would be that they own rugby at different levels. So, I mean, the problem with Altrad, of course, is he owns Montpellier. If Montpellier were to clash with Gloucester at some point, that would be a pretty bad look for whichever team won that game. SRU, it's not quite so clear because, of course, Worcester are never going to encounter Scotland anytime soon, except maybe in a friendly. The bigger problem comes things like participation, player release. So the SRU could technically do this, but then they're going to be stopped on two levels. First of all is on a competition level. I believe that European Rugby might have a problem with it. And also the clubs themselves, they get final say over who gets to buy or sell, well, sorry, not sell, but who gets to buy a rugby club. So if the remainder of members of Premier Rugby are not happy with this deal, it simply won't go ahead. And you can imagine, can't you, going forward, Scotland have a big test. There's player release issues. That isn't gonna be a good fit.
Well, if the SRU, the Scotland Rugby Union, take over, is this the first step in an Irish and maybe British competition or league, like with Worcester moving over to Scotland, like Wasp moved from London to Coventry? Well, that would be the same league. Yeah, that's not really a fair comparison in that sense because it's not from one country to the next.
No, but I do get your points. And, the idea of the British League has been on the table for so long. I mean, I think actually in some ways you might see it as inevitable, but I don't think it's in the immediate future. There's far too much politics around, particularly things like Welsh rugby. Why would the IRFU give up already with their regions, which are quite frankly world leading? I think where it becomes more attractive is the TV money. But at the moment, it'd be more attractive for the Celtic nations rather than being attractive for the English teams. And also, where are all these teams going to play? You know, you're going to expand to 32 teams. It just wouldn't really work.
What about putting a team on American soil?
Well, I think you're talking about what the Pro 14 would like to do there. I think that's the most likely avenue. And the problem with putting a team on American soil, of course, is what you're asking there is for American shareholders to subsidise the game in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. And I don't see any appetite for the Premiership to move a team there. So I can't see it. I think with American rugby, the best thing that they can do is launch their own competition and keep their proceeds in America. Otherwise, it's just subsidising Celtic nations.
So what is your prediction on what's going to happen with the Warriors?
I think it's an interesting story. I think because it is so outrageous and out there, this will continue to roll and roll. But ultimately, it's going to be bought by someone else who is very, very keen on rugby. It'll be a private owner. And I doubt very much we'll see the SRU. In fact, if we ever did see the SRU own a club, it'd probably be London Scottish in London. That's already kind of been dabbled with. It didn't go too well. I can't see it, to be fair. I predict Worcester Warriors will be on the market for some time yet.
Do you think that all of this, and perhaps the finalization of ownership, will ultimately expedite Gary Gold coming over to the U.S. earlier?
No, I don't. I think Gary Gold will finish off the season at Warriors. They're doing pretty well. Having said that, the future for Warriors looks pretty bleak. Gary Gold's leaving, and he is an excellent director of rugby, an excellent coach. But more to the point, with the uncertainty with the ownership, there are quite a few players out of contract, and the premium on Premiership players now is so high that they'll be immediately snapped up. So if Worcester don't get their house in order right now, because this is player signing time, if they do stay up this year, they're going to have a real tough time of it next year.
Last question, 15 seconds, 2 parts. What the heck is going on with Saracens, and who's going to win the Premiership?
Right, let's go with Premiership first. That'll be Exeter. Saracens. Don't worry about Saracens would be my first thing. They've had a tough run of form. I think ultimately when they look at their performances outside of the loss to Claremont, they're not going to be overly concerned. Saracens aren't a short-term team. I don't think they're going to get overly worried about the fact that they've lost 6 on the bounce. The performances and how they get better. Saracens are a long-term process. They're a long-term project. So, a handful of losses, not going to bother them. In fact, they're going to have a tough time next week in the return game to Claremont, but after that, I think they will turn the corner. They've got far too much talent, far too much skill, and they're far too well coached with too much data. So, the Saracens are going to be absolutely fine. I predict they'll end up in top 4. They'll do well in the playoffs, and they'll also probably go far into Europe.
All right, I'm relieved because I am a big fan of Wolfpack Lager, so I always want Saracens to win.
Absolutely.
Right,
well
my Lord Wiles, at your leisure. All right, so on that note, my friend, thank you for calling in, imparting your wisdom and your knowledge of all things on that side of the pond. Not that you don't know things on this side of the pond as well. Mr. JB, Jonathan Beardmore, calling in from the Eggchasers podcast. Make sure you check them out. Anything else that you want people to check out, JB?
Yeah, have a look at the Rugby Dungeon. That's my other podcast that came. The latest episode of that came out today with England and South Lanka, Tom Curry. Well worth a listen. But Matt, thank you as always for having me on. I absolutely love the rugby wrap up. So keep it going, mate. Good stuff.
Thank you, sir. And I hope we're going to reciprocate with yours truly on your show one of these days. But we'll wait and see on that. We'll wait for the invite.
And, coming very soon.
All right. And on that note, Matt McCarthy for JB, Jonathan Beardmore from the Eggchasers podcast and the Rugby Dungeon here at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 on West 35th Street in New York City, signing off.